We'll do the Maimer in Meluket, Maimor in Meluket in Chelik Daled. This is the 24th Maimer. The Rebbe said this Maimer on Shabbos Parshas Eikev, which was Mevorch Machodesh Elul, was the 23rd of Menachem of in Tofshin Chovches. The Maimer begins with Va'ata Yisrael Mohavai Lekecha Shoel Me'imoch Kim Liyiro. Later on, this Maimer was published in a booklet of Chov Menachem of Tinose in Tavshinun Aleph. This was in honor of the day of Chov Menachem of the day, the Histalkus Ilula of Kvet Kedushas, Rav Agoin, Rav Achos, Tam Kubel, Mareinu Levi Yitzchak Zal, and the Shmos Ein Schneerson, the father of Yibod L'chaim Tovim Chakad Mushlita. That's what's in the introduction. This was printed on the third day, on Tuesday, of the portion of Eikev, on Yutes Menachem of, in the year Tinose, in Tavshinun Aleph. So that's when they published this Maimer. That was Magi, and they published the Maimer. So we'll do the Maimer now. Siaita Dishmaya, Shabbos Parshas Vorcha Chedesh Elul Chav Gil Menachem of Tavshin Chavkas. So he quotes from the Pasuk. It says, "Va'ata Yisrael Mo Havaya Lekecha Shoyel Me'imoch Ki'im Liyira Goymer." And now Israel, the Jewish people, Hashem is turning to them through Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, "What is Hashem asking of you, Ki'im Liyira?" All that Hashem asks for you is just to fear Him, Goymer, etc. So the Gemara expounds this pasuk of Mo Hashem Elekecha Shoyel Me'imoch, as it's pronounced as Meo Hashem Elekecha Shoyel Me'imoch, which means 100. That the Eibishter asks of you to make the 100 brachas every day. The Gemara relates over there that David HaMelech, there was a saw that there were 100 people dying every day. He didn't know why until he understood through real Ruach HaKodesh that they need to say the 100 brachas in order to protect these people that were dying. And once he instituted, David HaMelech instituted the 100 brachas, then they stopped dying. And the Gemara leans this idea that David HaMelech came up of 100 brachas on the posik of Mo al tikre Mo Elomeya. The Rebbe asks, but how does the word Ma seems to express a minimum, a small amount? Mo, what? What is already God asking of you? But according to the way the Gemara dashes al tikra Mo Elo Meya 100, God asks of you 100. 100 is a very wholesome, complete, a big number. So how do we reconcile these two? In the word Ma, it's basically pronounced, or it's written Ma, which means what, a small amount, and it really means Meya. The Rebbe is going to explain this. The Isa Gemara. So we find in the Gemara that Chayiv Odom Levorich Meya Brachos B'chol Yom, that a person is obligated to say 100 brachas every day. Shenemar, and the Gemara quotes this pasuk, "Va'ata Yisrael Mo Havaya Lekecha Shoyel Me'imoch." What now, Israel? What is Hashem asking of you? Israel meaning the Jewish people. What is God asking from you? Al tikri ma. Don't read it as ma, which means what? Elameo. Read it as 100. So the ma becomes, according to the drasha of the Gemara, that God asks of you to do 100. So b'tzorich lahavin. So we need to understand this. Harei ma umeyo. Ma and Meya, they're two separate matters. Doesn't seem to be connected. The Yiseda Mizu, not only are they different, Shem Hofrim, they look as opposite. The Loshen Ma, the language of Ma, Moire, that points Shaha'inyan Hamedubaru Dover Cotton, that the subject matter, what we're talking about, is something small. What is no big deal, something small. But now the drasha, when we say that it's Meya who mispar Godel, that's a very large number. 100 is a large number. Not only is it large, Va'ad l'shleimus hamispar, it is the wholesome number. The number 100 is a wholesome number because it's a very complete number. And as the Rebbe pointed out in the previous Maimer, we learned that in the letter of the Aleph base, the Aleph, the highest number we have is 100. Kuf is 100. There's no 1,000, which means that at least according to these numbers, that 100 is the wholesome number. That's a full number, and we don't go higher than that. But here we're talking about Ma, which means a very small amount, and here we're talking about Meya, which is a very large. It seems to be a great paradox over here, the opposite extremes, and we're learning it the same pasuk. One, the pasuk, it's Ma, the way it's written is Ma, and the meaning becomes 100. How do we connect the little with the lot, with the very Ma to becoming Meya? And the Rebbe adds, especially what changes from Ma to Meya is the Aleph that you put in there. And in Chassidus, we know that the Aleph represents a higher light, the light of Sovev, because Aleph spells Pella. So that means that the number 100 in the represented by the level Aleph, which is Pella, if you put it into the Ma, you bring in actually Sovev. Sovev, the light that is all-encompassing, that surrounds the world. So here, from nothing, from Ma, what? You become Meya in the highest level. Befrat, the Rebbe says in the bracket, adds, Lefi hamevur, b'chasidus, as explained in Chasidus, the zeshani toisev b'meya alma, what is it that has been added to the Meya on the word Ma? Hu hois aleph, that is the letter aleph, that you put in Ma to make it Meya. And aleph is ois pella, has the spelling, the letters of Pella. Pella means wonder. When we say wonder, meaning something which is above, wonder, above nature, above memalukul almim, oir hasoivev shalamaylo mehishtalshlus. The light of Sovev, which is Pella, which is higher than the Hishtalshlus, the orderly evolution of the world, this is higher. This is a Pella. This is a wonder. This is beyond. So that means that the Aleph sticking into the word Ma gives Ma not only the wholesome of number, it gives it the level of Sovev Kulam. So how does these two things take place? As the Rebbe will explain, that actually Ma becomes the Keli, the Bittel becomes the Keli for Meya, as we will see later on. Gam tzarich lahavin. We also need to understand, so it seems like when you do the 100 brachas in this pasuk, the way the Gemara darshans it, that you come to Yiras Hashem, because the Meya Hashem Elekecha Yiras Hashem. But since the Gemara says that who is the one that instituted the 100 brachos was David HaMelech, so the question was, it means that in the beginning they were able to reach Liyiras Hashem without the 100 brachos. Because the one who made Ma into Meya, the 100 brachas, is David HaMelech. So what happened with all the time from the Pasuk till David HaMelech? They had the Yiras Hashem without Meya. They just learned Ma. So why is it that by David HaMelech we needed, in order to get to Yira Hashem Elikecha, we need the Meya? The Rebbe will explain later on in the Maimer that there is a higher level of Yiras Hashem that came about through the Mesiras Nefesh when the Yidden were dying. That brought them to a higher level, as we'll see later on. Gam tzorich lahavin. Also, we need to understand Mashakosov Hatur b'shem Rabbi Turunoi Goyen, that which the Tur writes in the name of Rabbi Turunoi Goyen. He brings down the Zeh shetzorich levorich meya brachas b'chol yoyim. This that we need to say, need to make 100 brachas every day, hu takonas David HaMelech, that was instituted by David, by the King David, Kamesha Kosuf. As in Tilim, it says, Ne'um hagever hukam al, let the person speak, which is referencing to David HaMelech. The one who established hukam, he established al. Al is ayin lamed, is 170 and 30, ayin and lamed. So hukam al. The man who established al 100, al the gematria kruf. Al is the gematria kruf, because David HaMelech is the one that instituted these 100 brachas. The pasuk we just quoted from the Gemara in Menachos, the pasuk that says al tikra ma elameya, v'hadrasha al tikra ma elameya hi asmachta. That expounding that we said, don't pronounce it as ma, but as meya, is only leaning on the pasuk, but that's not a real source of the pasuk. It's only an asmachta that we leaned after David HaMelech established it. He leaned it on the pasuk. But then he brings down the reason why did David HaMelech establish the 100 brachas. Numa gever hukamol. Vatam shetikin David levorich meya brachas. So what's the reason why David instituted the 100 brachas? Is Kamesha Kosov Hatur Shom, is as the Tur writes over there, Ki b'chol yoim hoyu meisi meya nefashis me Yisrael. Because every day there were 100 people dying, 100 souls of Israel were dying every day. V'loi hoyu yoidim alma hoyu meisim, and they didn't know why were they dying. Ad shechokar v'hevim b'ruach hakodesh, until he investigated, and he understood through ruach hakodesh David HaMelech v'tikin meya brachas b'chol yom, and he instituted the 100 brachas every day. So basically, the reason why David HaMelech instituted it is to protect, and because of what was going on of the people dying, so he instituted the 100 brachas. And then later on, they leaned this on this pasuk in our parsha that Ma Hashem Elikecha, meaning Ma Tikra Ma Elameya, that we have to make the 100 brachas based on this pasuk. They leaned it on this pasuk. So, but the fact that 100 brachas in this pasuk leads you, as the pasuk says, Meya liyiras Hashem. That means in order to get the Yiras Hashem, you have to do the Meya brachas. It's tzarich love. So we really need to understand the mezeh shachiyuv levarich Meya brachas b'chol yom lamdu b'ifun das machla. Yeah, that they learned that the obligation to do 100 brachas every day, they learned out in a way of leaning mahakosov mo havai lekecha shoyil me'imach, that what does God ask of you? That's the pasuk. Ma is meya. Shenemer by b'emshcha pasuk. What is the continuation of this pasuk? is liyiras Hashem Elkecha goymer lava oisei, to fear God and to love Him. That is the mo Hashem Elkecha al tikra ma'alameya. Move on. So it's understood that this that we're learning from here, al tikra ma'alameya, is not just independent. It's part of this pasuk that when you do meya, then you will come liyiro le'ava, to love and fear Hashem. So b'chdei lavoi liyira savaya la'avoi. So in order to come to fear Hashem and to love Him, hu al yidei meya brachas, you need 100 brachas. V'afal pikein, and yet the meshach kama v'kama doidos, from the duration of many and many generations, kol zman shelamesu b'chol yom meya nefoshes. As long there wasn't 100 people dying every day, they did not institute to do the 100 brachas every day. So that really means that they were able to reach the level of the Yiras Hashem without the Meya, without the 100 brachas, because it wasn't established yet. So how is it that now, in order to come to Yiras Hashem, we need the Meya brachas? As the Rebbe will explain, that the Yiras Hashem becomes on a higher level, which is through Golus and through the fact that there was Mesiras Nefesh and people were dying. It led them to a greater level of Yiras Hashem. Taka, before the level of Yiras Hashem that they experienced, they did not have. As we'll see later on, towards the end of the Maimon, the Rebbe will explain this. But now, first, we have to understand the Chlal. We're saying the 100 brachas. What is the 100 brachas? What does it do? What are these 100 brachas? The word bracha means blessing, but it also comes from the lashon of drawing down. As in the bracha that we say, Baruch Hashem min ha'olam ve'ad ha'olam, to draw down the Eibishter from olam to the olam. That means there's the olam iskasya, the hidden world, and then you have the alma disgalia, the revealed world. So a bracha brings down godliness, brings down the chayis from the hidden world into the revealed world. And as the Rebbe will bring down also later on, in the soul of a person, there is the revealed part of the soul, which is the koiches, the powers of the soul, of nefesh, ruach, and neshama, the parts, the 3 parts. There's 5 parts to the soul. So there is the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Those are the revealed parts, the intellect, the emotions, the actions, thoughts, speech, and actions. All of them are the revealed parts of the soul. But we have to bring down from the hidden part of the soul, from the level of makif of the soul, from the level of chaya. The Rebbe eventually will say also the level of yechida, as the Rebbe will continue to explain. This is also associated by the person's ava. There is the ava of b'chol levavcha, and then there is the ava of b'chol nafshecha. Chol levavcha is the with the koiches pnimim, with the level that it comes down in the inner, and the whole nafshecha is the koiches makifim. This is the higher level, and then b'chol moedecha will later on, that will be even higher. That's the level of yechida, as we'll continue to see. Let's look inside base. Yuvon zeh al pi hamevuer, we'll understand this based on what is explained Badrushim Hamevairim Inyan Habrachas, in the Maimorim that explain the idea of the bracha. The brachas. They discuss what brachas are. The Pirush HaKosuv, explaining the pasuk, Baruch Min Ha'olam Ve'ad Ha'olam. It said, Baruch, the blessed. The Eibishter is blessed from the world to the other world, meaning to Baruch, to draw down from one world to the other world. The Inyan Habracha, The idea of a brocha is u'amshocha ma'alma di iskasya la'alma di isgalya. That is bringing down from the covered world, the hidden world, la'alma di isgalya, to the revealed world. The be'inyan has when we talk in spheres, which is the alma di iskasya and which is alma di isgalya, that's hu hamshocha mi bina, that comes from bina, which is alma di iskasya, that's covered world. Le malchus is alma di isgalya, to malchus, which is the revealed world, which means basically that in bina there is the revelation of alma di iskasya, that's keser, which is higher than ishtalshlus, is revealed in Bina, and in the level of Malchus is revealed the level of Memalekul Almim, the revealed world. So that's Bina and Malchus. And the bracha means to bring down from Bina to Malchus. When we do a bracha, we bring down from the hidden world, from Sphiras Habina to the Sphiras Malchus, Amad Isgalia. Ubinyan Hashemis, when we talk about the names of Hashem, which name of Hashem is represents the revealed world, which comes down into the world? Which name of Hashem represents which comes down in a makif, in a seviv, in the world, is both Havaya. There's two times Havaya. One is Havaya Dila'ela, which is the world that is covered, which represent this seviv Kalamim, and the other Havaya is Almo di Isgalia. Ubeinyan Hashemes, and in the matter of Shemes, who Hamshochas. So what does it mean to bring down from Alma di Iskasya to Alma di Isgalia? Is Hamshochas Havaya Dile'ela beHavaya Diletata. That is to draw down from the level of Havaya, which is the Le'ela, which is the level of the Oir HaSev of Kol Almim, into the level of Havaya Diletata, which is the Oir HaMemale Kol Almim. So in Sfiris, it's to be Mamshich Bina to Malchus, and in Shemes is to Mamshich the Havaya de Le'elo in Havaya de Letata, the upper level of Havaya to the lower level of Havaya. So why is Bina? Because in Bina there shines Havaya de Le'elo, the Sefer Kulam. And in Malchus shines the Havaya del Tata Memalkulam. Vashaych is the Bina Malchus, Lebeis Hashem is Havayahu. So what's the connection of Bina and Malchus to these two names of Hashem? Havaya de Le'ela and Havaya de Letata is ki Havaya de Le'ela who Seviv. Havaya de Le'ela, that's the level of Seviv. Ube Bina, and in the level of Bina, who Gilu HaKeser Seviv. In Bina, there is the revelation, what comes revealed is Keser. Vavaya de Letata, the lower, this the Vaya of the below, who Memale, that's the love of Male. And that is Zo Shemeir B'Malchus. The Havaya is the level of Zo, which comes down in Malchus. In Bina shines Havaya de Le'ela Keser. In Malchus shines Havaya de Letata, shines Zo, which comes down to Malchus. And then what we're doing is we're being mamshich. The bracha brings down. So what does the bracha do? Inyan habracha. The idea of the bracha, hu hamshochas gilu Havaya de Le'ela b'Havaya de Letata. So the bracha brings down, reveals the upper level of Havaya, Seviv Kulalmin, into Memalekulam, into Havaya de Letata. And so on the Maimorim, it's explained when we say that you bring it down, it means that they unite, that the Havaya de Le'ela unites with Havaya de Letata, which means that the Sovev unites with Memalish, Hamshochas, Havaya de Le'ela, Havaya de Letata, Shanasis al Yidei HaBracha. That when we bring down Havaya de Le'ela in Havaya de Letata, which is accomplished through the Bracha, He be'ofen shabeis Hashemes mischabrim yachad. It's in a way that these two names of Havaya and Havaya connect together. So sometimes, like we have in the pasuk, it says Hashem, Hashem. The Hashem, two times. That is the represents when the Shem Havaya de Le'ela comes to the Shem Havaya de Letata. That's why the pasuk will say Hashem, Hashem. So we know that by the 13 attributes of mercy, we say Hashem, Hashem. What happens to the attributes of mercy, which means that we bring down the higher level of Shem Havaya into the lower Shem Havaya. We bring down the Sevev into Memale in order to accomplish all the great things that the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim do. So that is Havaya. That's the Hamshocha. What happens when we make a bracha, we bring down Havaya de Le'ela and Havaya de Letata. Now, although the Rebbe cautions that the Havaya is not like here we're saying you go together, but the trup, it's Havaya. It's not Havaya. It's not together. There's actually a stop, a trup that separates the two Havayas. But as explained, the Rebbe says it's not a stop which separates them, but it's a stop that connects them. The Rebbe says like this: "Bagam the Havaya psik taima begavayu." Even though this Havaya, we said that union, they come together, but there is the trup that stops Havaya be in them, so there is an interruption. So he says, "Apsik taima einoi hefsek gomer." That interruption of the trup is not a complete interruption. Kishar haparsois. When we talk in other situation in which there is a stop, in which there is a separation, those are called a curtain that separates. But over here, this separation from Havaya de Le'ela, Havaya de Letata, the Seva Mamale, is not like other places in which there is a real cover. There's a curtain. There's a partition. There's no partition here. So even though the Rebbe says, number one, this is a chibur of Seva Mamale, Havaya de Le'ela, Havaya de Letata, and number two, as explained in Kabbalah, there's actually that stop brings them together. Further, it says in the Pardes, that this interruption of the time between the two names of Havaya, that unites them and connects them. Al Yidei HaBracha. The bracha actually connects them. So we have the bracha connecting these Havaya. HaChibur, the Beis Hashemes, Hu Chibur Yichud Gomer. So when we make the bracha, then that connection of the two names Havaya becomes a complete connection and a complete unity. Havaya goes together. So basically, we're learning now what does bracha accomplish. The bracha brings down from the level of Segav Kol Almim into the level of Mimala Kol Almim. And the way it comes down in a real connection. So now we're going to learn how does the bracha accomplish that is through the service of a Yid in his avodah, that because he connects by himself his level of Seviv to his level of Memale, that brings about that connection that later on the savior of the world goes to a mallet. So the person by his neshama, his savior of kolamim, his level of chaya connects, is mischaber with his level of naran, which impacts the naran, changes around and brings about the level of makif in his primi, which is the level of b'chol nafshecha versus b'chol levavcha. B'chol levavcha, that's the avodah of nefesh, ruach, and neshama. But when you bring the b'chol nafshecha, then you bring down the level of makif, the level of chaya of the neshama into the naran, nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Let's look inside. Vapia Yadua, based on what is known, Shavoidas Ha'odom, that the service of man is aruso dilatato, shal yodo nasis ha'hamshoch is aruso dileilo, the arousal of below, the avoid of the person through which the hamshoch is aruso dileilo takes place. Tzricha liyos me'ein ha'hamshoch needs to be somewhat of what is being drawn down, which means if you bring down Sevev to Memale, your avoida has to be in your neshama to bring down the Sevev of the neshama into the Memale of the neshama. Yesh loymar. So the Rebbe says we can say Shaha avoida shal yoda nasis habrocha v'amshocha. What is the avoida through which this brocha and amshocha takes place? Me alma dis galsia la alma dis galia, from the world that is covered to the revealed world, he ha'ava the b'chol nafshecha. That's the level of b'chol nafshecha. When a yid serves the Eibishter, says b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, that brings about that level. Now, b'chol meidecha is even higher level, because b'chol meidecha is bringing down the level of Yechida, and the Rebbe is going to speak about that in the second parsha of Shema. We don't even find b'chol meidecha, as we'll see later on in the Maimer. But right now we're talking about the two levels, the Ava b'chol levavcha and the Ava b'chol nafshecha, and the difference between them. That the b'chol nafshecha is a general, all encompasses all the soul. The Rebbe is going to make now two distinctions between the b'chol levavcha and b'chol nafshecha. First of all, that b'chol levavcha is the pnimius, it's the emotion, and then b'chol nafshecha actually includes all of the person, not just the midah, because levavcha specifically concentrates on the midah. And then there is another difference, as explained further. But let's go inside. So he says, "V'yesh leimar, v'ayinu." So the first difference is b'chol levavcha is singles out the emotions, heart. B'chol nafshecha means all of your soul, which includes your heart and your mind, all of the person. That's b'chol levavcha or b'chol nafshecha. V'inyanhu. So the Rebbe explains that the pirush b'chol nafshecha, the meaning of b'chol nafshecha, hu b'chol koiches hanefesh. Later on, the Rebbe will talk about b'chol nafshecha, afilu noiteles nafshecha, mesiras nefesh. But right now, the first b'chol nafshecha means all of your soul, who b'chol koiches hanefesh, which means all faculties of the soul, which is both seichel and midas. We're not talking about just b'chol levavcha, we're talking b'chol nafshecha. The distinction between b'chol levavcha, b'chol levavcha is talking about the emotions. B'chol nafshecha is talking about the seichel and the midas. V'yesh loymar hakavona bazeh. What is meant when we say with all the powers of the soul? Shemaylas ha'ava de b'chol nafshecha al ha'ava de b'chol levavecha. What is the advantage of the love which is described by saying b'chol nafshecha, greater over the ava which is with all your heart here? Sheba ha'ava de b'chol levavcha iker hi hamida. In the ava of b'chol levavcha, the main thing is the emotion, is that measure, that heart. Shalochein nemar bo b'chol levavcha. That's why we say with all your heart. The main thing is the leiv humokim mishkan hamidus. The heart is where the emotions rest. So it's mainly an emotional love. It's a love of heart. It is mainly the emotion which comes through that love. B'chol nafshecha talks all your being, isn't talking anymore only about heart. Why is it only heart? Because even though this is a love which is built on reflection, on meditation, and meditation, the way it works is that the mind reflects and it creates the love. So in the first level of B'chol Levavcha means that the level of understanding is only external part of the brain, which doesn't really mean when you understand it, it's not the whole person is understanding. It's your intellect is understanding. It's external. And therefore the heart that you impact have to work on it remains separate, and you create a love in the heart. When you have uh, the intellect, you grasp it inside the pnimis haseichel, that touches the whole person. That means all of you understood it. So while you have ava, which is an expression of love, but it's not just the heart that loves, it's your being, because it was in the inside of the intellect, the inner pnimis, it means the person itself understood it, and therefore it's b'chol nafshecha, it's not just your heart anymore. Let's look inside. Ki ha'hasoge shemelida avazu, because the level of grasping, which will create the level of b'chol levavcha, which will create the level of midah of levavcha, what kind of a hasoga created that? He bechitzonius haseichel hashayich lemidas. So that's in the external part of the intellect, what has a connection to the emotion. And therefore, that level of love created from that understanding is separate than the emotion. So when we talk about Ava, it created it, but it is no longer, it's not the Seichel. V'hasoga, the Bechina Zu, hi b'mayach. Ve'ena me'ira b'lev. That understanding is in the mind, and it doesn't shine in the heart. The mind does not shine in the heart. So it's not automatically there. It doesn't shine, and therefore, it has to l'chein hoiladas ha'avam ha'seichel. How is this the Ava created the Vahafta from that meditation, from that reflection, from that seichel? Eina b'derech memela. It's not automatically. It's not you understood something because elo sha'aseichel tzorich lifel es ha'ava. The intellect has to impact the love. It's something outside of the seichel. The seichel, chitzonius haseichel understands it. It needs to influence so that you have an emotion that works with your emotion to create a love of b'chol levavcha. So you should love Hashem with your heart, as opposed to ha'ava de b'chol nafshecha. But when we talk an ava of all of your soul, it's a love. It's still ava. It's still leiv. It's still a midah. But It's an ava of all your being, all of your soul. Ha'hasoga shemimena bo ha'ava hi bipnimis hasechel. That idea that creates from which this love comes, hi bipnimis hasechel. It's the inner part of the sechel. So then, shahasoga de bechina zu, when you grasp it at the level of pnimius hasechel and this high inner level of sechel, me'ira belief that shines in the heart. You don't have to work on it. That's part of you. B'hamshochas ha'avim hasechel be'ofen b'derech b'meila. Bring the way the ava comes from the intellect is sort of in a way of automatic when there's a seichel and you understand it, so you create a love because that seichel is the inner, it touches you, your essence, you're inside of the neshama, and therefore it follows to the leiv. That's why by this love, it says with all your being, because it includes the seichel as well, because the seichel shines inside the lave. So while it's an ava, it's a lave, but it's a lave of b'chol nafshecha. It's together with the intellect. Kol koichas hanefesh, all the powers of the soul. Ki be'ava zu nirgash gam haseichel. Because in this ava, you also feel the seichel. So it's not just b'chol levavucha, it's not just the heart. It's b'chol nafshecha, because over here, the intellect that created that love was a pnimius haseichel, which touches and it brings out that the whole, the lave itself, so it's the whole nefesh is involved in it. The Rebbe brings down now in the bracket that what is explained, here we're talking about mainly how seichel and midas, it's either midas as a distinct from seichel, b'chol levavcha, or is b'chol nafshecha, which means midas together with the seichel, because the seichel is part of the midas. It's all together. The pnimis seichel shines in the ava, and the Rebbe connects it. What it says elsewhere when it talks about the distinction is as levavcha impacts the lower parts of the further than the heart. That the when it's in levavcha, it stays in the heart, and it doesn't extend further. Meaning that love does not bring about the necessarily the continuation in all of the powers and all of the limbs, that they should all be involved in that love of Hashem. When we have the level of b'chol nafshecha, it extends to the entire nimshach, to everywhere. And perhaps the Rebbe connects these two things, that if b'chol levavcha, which is only heart, which means it's separate from the level of the moichin, it doesn't come down further. But when it's b'chol nafshecha, that the moichin are connected with the midas, that it goes down first. Let's look inside. So we can tie this with that which is explained elsewhere. That is only in the heart. Over there. That's what it says over there. It remains in the heart. And then when it's b'chol nafshecha, it's not only in the heart, but it also expands to all the koiches, all the limbs. So what does it mean that it expands or doesn't expand to the other limbs? As Havaya, that when there is the Chol Vavcha, of course the person does mitzvahs, that's what the Ava brings him to, but the reason that he does the mitzvahs because he loves Avosis Havaya, hu be'ofen she'ha'ava po'eles ala ma'aseh shaloi. The Ava impacts, it's not an automatic, like we talked about before, from the seichel to the midas. It's not automatically from the levavcha, automatically Maisa is done, but it works on bringing the Maisa. That means it's mispashetes, but what does it mean when it says in the Maimer that it's only in the heart? It can't be. After, of course, it leads them to do the mitzvahs, but it means that it remains in the heart, that the heart has to influence the act, the Maisaloi. But uba'ava de b'chol nafshecha, where it says it expands, asiyas ha-mitzvah shaloi, u'kamei b'derech mamela, then the mitzvah is done sort of automatically. It just shines there. V'yesh loymar. So the Rebbe connects this now. Why does the b'chol vavcha impact the Maisa versus B'chol Nafshecha is B'derech Memela, because that's how he came to B'chol Levavcha. It has to be impacted by the Meichen through his Asaga. That's why the B'chol Levavcha has to influence Maisa, Livvel. But B'chol Nafshecha came automatically because from the Pnimis HaSeichel that it's shined into the person, into his emotions automatically. So the same thing is, it goes further automatically. That the way the midas extend into the lower, the koiches that are lower than them, that's similar to the way the midas themselves came down. Shahamidas nimshachim mehaseichel from the Pa'ula, because when we talk about the love of B'chol Levavcha, they came from the Seichel, that the Seichel had to create the level of Ava, the Ava of B'chol Levavcha. Sha'aseichel tzorich lifelas hamida, the Seichel needs to impact the Midah. V'hamshachosom ba'koiches shalamata mehem, so therefore the way they're extended in the powers below them, from the Pa'ula. That's why they have to be in a way to work, so that the Maisa is through the work of the Levavcha. But V'hamida is Shan Shochim HaSeichel from the Memela. But the emotions that come from the Seichel in an automatic way, that the Seichel shines there and they just can't Ki HaSeichel Meir Gam Belev, because that's B'chol Nafshecha, because the Seichel shines also in the heart. So the way they extend in the powers that are below the Lev, is in a way that the emotions themselves expand into all the limbs and all powers. And the way they impact the powers in the limbs is sort of in an automatic way. That's based on the way they come. And that, what it means is that the Ava of B'chol Levavcha, since B'chol Levavcha came about through the work of the Seichel impacting, but it remains separate. So then the way B'chol Levavcha poils on the Maise is through poil, to a pula. And that's what it's meant, that it says in the Maimorim over there, that it doesn't expand, meaning they don't have the lave in there. The lave is forcing those, is poil that. But the level of B'chol Nafshecha, since the way it comes from the Seichel, that the Seichel is meir there, it shines, and therefore automatically you have that level of B'chol Levavcha. It's in there, it's in the heart. So therefore, the way it expands into Maisa is B'chol HaKoiches and B'chol Evorim is sort of automatically, not through a way of a Pa'ula. And that's what's meant the chilik between the to love B'chol Levavcha, B'chol Nafshecha, and the other man. Okay, so now these idea that we're saying, that we're bringing down from the B'chol Nafshecha, meaning that the seichel, the meichin, is in the midos. That's why it's b'chol nafshecha. That's actually the idea, the sarusa de latata, what a yid does in his avodah, that he brings down from alma de iskasya to alma de isgalia. Because the ava is an alma de isgalia, the midah is an alma de isgalia. And we're saying when the love that comes from b'chol nafshecha comes from the seichel into the midas. That means that the sarusa de latata, the avodas ha'adam, was to bring from his hidden level, from his alma de iskasya, from his level of chaya, from the level of this level of moichin. So the moichin is considered moichin is considered to be the level of hidden, and emotion is revealed. The intellect is iskasya, and the moichin and midas is revealed. You can see emotional. You can see it's revealed. What's in the mind is hidden. So bringing the b'chol nafshecha, bringing what's in your mind into your heart, that it becomes one, the b'chol nafshecha means to bring from alma diskasi into alma disgalia. V'kivon shemeichin hein nistoris. Meichin are the hidden. Umidas hem niglois, midas are revealed. Lochein al yidei ha'ava de b'chol nafshecha. Through this ava b'chol nafshecha, which means sham meichin meirin gam belev. The meichin shine in the heart. B'chol levavcha, they remain separately. It's only the heart. You don't see the meichin there. But when we have b'chol nafshecha, that the meichin shine in the lev, nasis habrocha, that is the srusu de letata, that brings about the hamshocha, habrocha v'hamshocha, ma'alma di iskasya la'alma di isgalia, from the covered world to the hidden world. So this is why a brocha accomplishes it, because accomplishes to bring down from the Havaya into the other Havaya, from the Iskafia, of the Iskasya to Isgalia, from Bina to that, from Bina to Malchus, all of these Madregas is the Avodah Ha'odom, which brings from his level of Iskasya, from his Moichin into the Midas, which is the love of B'chol Nafshach. Then the Rebbe is going to put the other aspect in which we have being mamshich from the level of B'chol Nafshecha, how it's, the Rebbe started off saying there's two differences. So here we learned the difference between how Seichel is within the Avas of B'chol Nafshecha, but not in the Ava B'chol Levavcha. There's another chiluk, Shebein Ha'ava, the B'chol Levavcha v'Ava, the B'chol Nafshecha, between these two loves. So he says, Sha'ava, the B'chol Levavcha, he b'bchinas memala kol almim. What level of love that the person reflects on, which brings him to the level of B'chol Levavcha, is in the level in which godliness fills the world, in level of memala kol almim. Sha'ava, the B'chol Levavcha, he b'bchinas memala kol almim, is in the level of memala kol almim. The kivon sha'achai is the b'chinas memala kol almim hu melubesh b'hanivroim b'primiusam. Since that energy from memala kol almim is what dresses up in the nivroim in their inner, comes down into them. Lochein al yidei ha'izbainenus nirgash chayiz zeh kam b'nefesh hamamis. So through reflecting on memala kol almim, it can be felt also in the nefesh habahamis, the animal soul, because we're talking about a light that could, an energy that could touch the soul. The soul gets to feel it, the animal soul gets to feel it, because we're talking about a very restricted, a level of memala kol almin, which goes in the inside, so that also the nefesh habahamis is b'chol levavcha, also in the nefesh habahamis. Va'ava, therefore, he b'chol levavcha b'shnei yitzrecha. That's why the level of love is to levavcha. Levavcha, meaning b'shnei yitzrecha, the nefesh elekis, nefesh habahamis. Why? Because when the reflection is in memalekol almim, is v'haftas Hashem elikecha b'chol levavcha, you can impact both parts of your, because we're talking about memalekol almim. But when we talk va'ava, the b'chol nafshecha, he b'bchina seva kol. But the ava of b'chol nafshecha is in a level of seva kol, which means you reflect on that which is higher, God's energy in the world, which is beyond dressing up in the world. The above, how Hashem is above the key, since the light of the Sovev is higher than dressing up in the world. So what you so by feeling the exaltness, the distinction of the Ein Sof Sovev, so then you're loving Hashem in a way. It's b'chol nafshecha, afilu noitlas nafshecha. You love Hashem beyond any measure of limitation. This is, in a way, mesiras nefesh. Afilu noitlas nafshecha. That's the other meaning of the shnei yitzrecha. Afilu noitlas nafshecha. So v'al pizeh. So this now. So what does this mean with regards to being mamshich from alma di iskasya to alma di galia? So he says, "Malpizeh hashaychus da'ava de b'chol nafshecha." So this level of b'chol nafshecha, we're saying that this becomes the hamshocha from Sovev to memale, the hamshocha ma'alma di iskasya, to bringing down from alma di iskasya. We said to bring down from the level, the hidden level. So what does it got to do with b'chol nafshecha? Now that we're saying that it's level of mesiras nefesh, which is in your abrocha, the hamshocha of alma di iskasya, which is the abrocha. The brocha is bringing down from alma di iskasya. So how does this connect to this pshat in b'chol nafshecha, that it means even if he takes your nefesh, the eifim mesiras nefesh, he loy rak li'inyan alma di iskasya k'moi shehu b'sfiros bina. It's not only to the level of iskasya, where it's in sfiros and bina, because when we talk to bring down from bina to malchus, this is already within atzilus, from the level of bina into the level of malchus. That's the connection. But now we're talking about bringing in from the general sovev, which is higher than ishtalshlus bechlal, into ishtalshlus. Balpizeh hashaychus the abchol abshocha b'alma diskasya bracha. He loy rak li'inyan alma diskasya k'mesho b'sfiras. It's not just the way alma diskasya is manifest itself in the sfiras, which is the level of bina. But we're talking now alma diskasya gamlin alma diskasya sovev k'mesho b'chlolus hagiluyim, which is mamala. Generally, all giluyim, all revelations, not only malchus is memale. Even bina, which is in this sovev, is also memale, because that's giluyim. If it's giluyim, it's memale. On a more general way, memale is giluyim and sovev is above giluyim. Because you're mamshich the level of mesiras nefesh, which is beyond. Yesh leimar. So when we're saying over here that you're mamshich from the level which is higher than giluyim into the level of giluyim, or to say you're mamshich from the level of keser, level into hishtalshlusi. So, Shloimer, the shal yidei ha'ava shemitzad hergesh ha'aflo de'erin sof. So then you have, so what we're saying is saruso dilatato, saruso dilela. Before we said saruso dilatato, as we explained before, the difference that was to be mamshich from bina to malchus almudis kasya almudis galia. Now that we're talking about b'chol nafshecha means the level of mesiras nefesh. Here we're talking about being mamshich from al seviv kolamim into memalik kolamim. יש להם, זה שעל ידי העבודה שמצד הרגש האפלו דאין סוף, nasis ha'amshocha, that through this feeling in the level of Sefer Klam, because that's what brings him to that sense of beyond, that he feels the aflo, the nasa amshocha ma'almadis kasya, Sefer la'almadis gali memale, hu be'iker ksha'av zu shehi mitzad b'chinas chaye makif. That is mainly when this love, the love of the hafloah, the love of the Sefer Klam, is because of comes because the level of chaya, which is level of makif, nirgeshes gambe hanaran pnim shloi, that the makif of his is felt in the nefesh ruach neshama of the pnim shloi. That's the way you get the connection of Sefer Mamali. Now we're emphasizing the connection between the level of makif of the neshama, which is the level of chaya of the neshama. When the chaya is felt in the nefesh ruach neshama, that means that the person by himself took his makif, his chaya, and it's felt in his pnimi. That's the nefesh ruach neshama. That's the way that the person brings down, that comes mainly through feeling that way. That's the way he gets the sense of the haflah in the Sefer Klam. So the Rebbe explained now in this distinction that here we're talking about, in order for the person to come b'chol nafshecha, he has to tap into Sefer Klam. And so we raised it a notch. We're not just talking about the level of Bina. We're talking about Sefer Kolamim, because Sefer Kolamim is the meditation that brings him to the Ava of B'chol Nafshecha. And the way you get to the level of Ava B'chol Nafshecha, that you bring down from the Hafloah, Sefer Kolamim, and the person's mind into the Ava, to create that level, that means that you're bringing down from Sefer Kolamim to Memala Kolamim, and that mainly comes through the Avodah, which the person does. He's bringing down his level of Chaya, his Makif, into the Pnimi. So this is the second explanation, that in B'chol Nafshecha means the level of Sefer Kolamim. Before we touched the level of Moichin and Midday, so we were talking about Bina and Malchus, because over there we're talking about being Mamshech, the Seichel from into the Middays, how it unites B'chol Nafshecha. So we're talking about just in Spheres, we're connecting Bina with Malchus. Here we're going up, talking about that the Hafloah is in Sefer Kolamim, and that brings down from the level of Sefer into Memala. I say. So now the Rebbe wants to bring out that you have a higher level that allows to be mamshich seviv into memali, which means that you have to be mamshich even higher than cannot be mamshich just seviv into memali. You need a higher level in order to be mamshich seviv into memali. Hey, v'hine yadua. And it's known, shebechdei sheyia chibur de seviv umemali. in order that there should be that connection of Seviv and Memale, who al yidei hamshochas oire sof shalamaylo meseviv umemale. That's by bringing down oire sof, which is higher than Seviv umemale, which allows for Seviv to come down to Memale. V'zehu al tikri ma elo meya. Don't pronounce it as ma, but meya. Ma hu malchus. Memale. Ma is malchus. That's memale. And meya hu arich, which is sovev. But it's chitzonius akeser, but it's sovev. So to be mamshich from arich into memale, into ma. V'al tikra ma elo meya. So what does it mean? Don't pronounce it ma, but meya. Who shagam b'ma, that also in memale tiyam shochas meya seviv. Now we want to be mamshich in the ma, in malchus, in memale arich or mamshich seviv. V'achiluk bein meya lema. So how do you have the arich in there? You need to bring in the aleph. You need to bring the level of atik even higher than seviv, higher than arich. You got to bring in the level of atik primis akesa. V'al tikra ma lemaya shagam v'achiluk ben meya lemahu shemitoyser by aleph, that they adds the aleph. The aleph who bechinas atik. Aleph is atik because aleph means one, but bechinas chad v'loy b'chushban. It means only. Sometimes there's one that you count two. This is one. Here when we say aleph, this aleph is not, there's no base, it's just one. It's not a counted aleph, it's not number one, it's not first, but it's only. Which is higher than seviv. So this is V'yeshlem datam al zeh shal yidei shemasifim aleph b'tevas ma nasemeya. Why is it that through adding the aleph in the word ma, you get 100? Hu ki aleph hu b'chinas atik. Aleph is the level of atik. Shal yidei zeh nase chipur de sevev meyo memale ma. That creates that arich and malchus should be connected. The sevev meyo memale ma. V'lochein al yidei sofas aleph. When you add the aleph, you add the atik. Nasa malameya, ma becomes meya because now you have the higher level than seviv that allows for the seviv to come to the mal. So this is in the Sfiras. Similar is in the service of men. Shebichdei sheyiyah chibur de b'chinas chaya makif in b'chinas naram pnimi. In order to be that connection, that chaya, the makif should come now in the naram pnimi. That the Abba b'chol nafshecha should be felt also in the inner koiches, that they should feel it, which is the second part the Rebbe talked before in the brackets that expands to everybody. And also the connection between the Meichen and the Midas, which is also Nistoris and Niglis. Meichen is Nistoris and Midas Niglis, to have the Almodis Kasi into the Almodis Galia, who al Yidei ha'avoida the Mesiras Nefesh shemitzad mechinas yichida. That comes from the avoida Mesiras Nefesh, which comes from the level of yichida, allows for the connection of makif and pnimis of the chaya of the chaya and the naran. What does this mean? How does it play? How do we explain this? Mesiras Nefesh means that you give yourself over to godliness. So then, what is the person when you give yourself over to the Eibishter totally? The aspect, all the koiches is just to fulfill the wishes of Hashem. So, V'kivon shamaki v'apnimi, v'chein ha'moichin v'amidus. Since the surrounding and the inner and the moichin and the midus in yonum hu loy hametzias shalom. So at that point, it's not what they are, it's not who they are, Makif and the Pnimis, but all what they want to do is to fulfill the wishes of Hashem. That's the whole person, that's the Mesiras Nefesh. That's why they don't contradict to one another. On the contrary, they connect all together. And that means that the power of Mesiras Nefesh allows for the makif of the person to connect to his pnimius, because it's no longer makif and pnimius. He is penetrated with the level of Mesiras Nefesh, which is not anymore their mitzias, so it's only Ratzon Hashem. So therefore, makif and pnimi come together, and from the makif, it penetrates and it impacts all of the koiches apnimim of the person.